Hi, everybody. Welcome to Busy Living Summer with Elizabeth Chant. And I'm so excited because I have the Zero Proof sisters. Okay, I'm saying it. Chirasmita and Priyanka, and their last name is Kompella. And I have been watching them on Instagram, and I'm so excited to hear their story, why they got into Zero Proof, why this is all occurring. Because guys that are listening, these girls are 27 and 22, and they are already spearheading this amazing, amazing movement. Now, before I go any further, I've got to give a shout out to SoberLink. We've all been there. You say you're never drinking again, and then you drink. Lasting sobriety is about connection, honesty, and trust. Having a loved one who cares about your sober journey can be the key to ending your drinking habits. SoberLink helps you get and stay sober by harnessing the power of proof, small enough to fit in your purse or your pocket and discreet enough to use in public. SoberLink devices give you accountability and allow you to rebuild trust with the loved ones who matter most, including yourself. As a recovery coach, I really can't think of a better tool to maintain accountability, strengthen community, and prove sobriety to loved ones. Visit www.soberlink.com/BLS to learn more and receive $50 off your first device. Thank you again, SoberLink. Okay, Zero Proof sisters, here we go. All right, I just have to give a caveat. These girls just flew in from Japan. They
Thank
just
you
got.
so much for having us here. We're really honored to be here.
I love it. I love it. What were you guys doing in Japan?
We were actually visiting our family. We have some family in Japan, and we hadn't taken a big family vacation with our youngest sibling is 15, so we needed to take a big family vacation. Um, and it was long overdue since the pandemic. So it was really nice to go travel, also experience a different way of drinking culture. Like we're really exposed to the U.S. drinking culture, and it was really nice to see Japan from a different lens after starting Zero Proof and have that background.
So speaking of Zero Proof, so what made you start Zero Proof?
Yeah, it was really a combination of things. Believe it or not, this was actually an idea Priyanka came to me with 5 years ago. So Zero Proof has been a long time coming. I'll let Priyanka talk a little bit about that story. But alongside that initial idea Priyanka had, it was really, like you said, it's young people kind of reassessing the way they drink, the way they socialize. And we saw this need not only in our own lives, but in the lives of everyone around us, opportunities to connect that didn't require you to have a glass of alcohol with you as you're doing that. So,
Yeah.
we're going to tell a little bit about like what sparked that idea.
Yeah. So Zero Proofed was born 9 months ago, but the backstory, the history to that was really when both Mita and I started getting exposed to the drinking culture. And 5 years ago, I had actually just graduated from college and was in this time of crisis, boredom, where I was really recovering from 4 years of um, this work hard, play hard drinking culture that I hadn't been exposed to before college. And I noticed how it took a physical toll on our bodies and our mental health, our physical health. And it was just a cyclic, like, a demon. And I realized that a lot of what people were really craving, what I was really craving, was that social um, connection, the opportunity to go out, meet someone, have an adventure, have some exciting time, and make some memories. And that's really why we started this pop-up bar, because we wanted to create those places where you can go, have a drink, have form connections with people and not have to drink alcohol, not have to feel hungover, not have to put that mental or that physical toll on your body. And we found through experimentation that like it actually allows people to open up a little bit more too, because all of a sudden you don't have this barrier of like, oh well, am I drunk enough to go talk to someone or make that decision, like can I trust my gut enough? And
You have to be a little bit more courageous, but then you kind of catch yourself and you step into your own power there, and you're leading those conversations instead of alcohol leading you into them.
yeah, so that's that feeling, that idea of those courageous connections is kind of what started Zero Proofed, and what got us to pop up. That was the idea 5 years ago. And I actually started looking at retail spaces, commercial spaces, drew up a business plan. But I was right out of college and I didn't have any job experience. I had a lot of student loans. And Mita was actually just graduating high school. So everyone was like, and at the time, like there wasn't this sober curiosity idea, like that sober curiosity hadn't been coined yet.
Yeah, it was either you had a problem with alcohol or you weren't questioning your relationship with alcohol. That's how society kind of posed that relationship.
Yeah, so there, like in turn, there was also just not this like appreciation for having a drink without alcohol. So oftentimes it was like, well, that's a juice bar and those exist. Why do you want to do that? Go get a real job and me to go to college.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we tabled it. But last summer we realized that, or I realized that I wanted to give people the opportunity to experience social life the way I had been in my adult life. And I worked through a lot of challenges in the corporate world, corporate happy hours, whining and dining partners, and things like that. Like I worked through all these challenges where I navigated not having a drink. Not having alcohol and not consuming alcohol, and explaining time and time again why I wasn't consuming alcohol. And I just wanted to give people an opportunity to like have fun without having to give that explanation, and give myself that opportunity. So when last summer, when all of these brands were popping up and bottle shops were popping up across the country, we realized we needed a way to bring the greater community to these bottle shops and to these ready to drink cocktail brands and these spirit brands, and give people this window into this world that was kind of growing in the sidelines, like it wasn't really getting highlighted. So we started a pop-up just to show what this world has to offer, and what these spirits can really bring to the table. And with that, we opened our Instagram account on I think August 28th, and nearly 3.5 weeks later, we had our first pop-up, and it was a live band karaoke pop-up bar. We had around like 125 people come out, and it was the greatest experiment ever, because nothing had in our Los Angeles community, we had never had this before. We'd never had this like giant live band karaoke where you go up on stage and like literally sing with professional band. Musicians. Yeah. But it turns out people were singing the entire night.
Yeah. We actually didn't even get to go up on stage that night. The band only could play Shake It Off out of Taylor Swift songs, but we had that prepped and we were waiting for our chance but never got it because people were just so excited to have that opportunity. And that just kind of spiraled into us growing so fast and the community wanting more and more experiences like that. And that brought us to 9 months later having thrown, I think, 16 events now. Yeah.
All in LA.
A couple outside of LA. So the majority have been in Los Angeles. We've done a couple in Denver, and then we've done a big one in San Francisco. But we are continuing to look to grow, and we'll soon be doing an event in San Diego and beyond.
Yeah. And now we're doing corporate happy hours. We're doing pop-ups at different brands and different hotels. Really just bringing more foot traffic to this sober, curious lifestyle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions, and I'm like, that's what I was sitting here making notes because I didn't want to forget anything. For one, I think I can't even like this is amazing, and I remember when the New York Times came out with an article about having bars, non-alcoholic bars, and
Yeah.
everybody's like, oh, and this is years ago, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, how is this ever going to go? Because I believed, and I don't know if you did, obviously, when you're going to college and everybody's using drinking as your social lubricant, as you kind of, made reference to, is that so many people can't think of having fun without the alcohol. And the other thing, which I think is interesting, is that, with social media today, a lot of young people do not learn how to talk to adults, right? They don't know how to talk to adults. My kids, because I don't know if it's because I was a single mom and I had tons of people around all the time, they always talked to adults, right? They always were forced to have conversations. But most of their friends don't know how to
Yeah.
talk, right? They're like, I don't know. I mean, my son just went with a friend through Europe, and his friend was like, wait, we're lost. What are we going to do? Let's get on the computer. And Henry's like, what do you mean? My son's name's Henry. He's like, what do you mean? Let's ask this person.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
to think that you have people coming that originally don't even know how to talk for one, right? Outside of texting or I DMing or whatever. And then to not have alcohol is like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is so true. And it was further perpetuated by the pandemic because all of a sudden we had to exclusively rely on virtual communication, right? So I think not only Gen Z, but kind of all of society took a step back from being able to connect in person. And then as soon as, we were all, it was safe enough to start socializing again, it was kind of like, oh no, I drank a lot in the pandemic and I don't want to continue that lifestyle, but I'm craving connection. And that was like, I think a big opportunity that we saw was like, well, what's the most genuine, authentic way to recreate that connection that people have lost? And it's in a lot of ways, like I said, you have to be courageous to not drink while you're meeting new people, while you're putting yourself out there. But at the same time, you're met with so much support, I think, in choosing to be in a space that is without alcohol and craving those connections and being kind of forthcoming about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so huge because for so many families through generation and is that alcohol was what brought everybody together, right? It's like Christmas, it's a holiday, it's a cocktail party, it's a barbecue, whatever time of year. It's like, oh, we associate getting together with family with drinking, right? That's what everybody did. But I think today people are so much more health conscious, right? So they all want to get out, everybody wants to exercise. They don't want to feel terrible. They don't want the calories. They don't want all this sugar going into their bodies. So they're like, wait a minute, what can we do? But this is kind of scary. But right, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary too because a lot of times alcohol is part in the cultural fabric. It's also about like making decisions and like making deals, and like you kind of rely on reducing your inhibitions to like have that gut reaction and that instinct. And what we're fighting against is that grain of like you actually need to be able to trust your gut without alcohol and be able to build connections as yourself and as your best self. And really what we've found through building this community is like so much grounding in like our own instinct.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're like alcohol is just not even a crutch that we're clinging to make these decisions. And I guess add the social lubricant of like going and talking to someone at a networking event or things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think maybe that has something to do with um, how how in during the pandemic, a lot of like we lost a lot of control over what to think. and having alcohol gave us that ability to just not even think about it.
Well, in a lot of ways, we were consuming so much media too, right? We were constantly being told how to think by what we were seeing on the internet, and constantly scrolling, watching TV shows. That was how we spent our time. And so when we left the pandemic and it was back to our own instincts, like you're saying, I think that disconnect was so apparent for so many people, and that's what is sparking, I think, this revolution in the way people are looking to socialize, especially in the younger generations.
And I love that because I think I can't even believe what you just said in that. Because now that I'm thinking about this, how many deals are done on a golf course or in a boardroom after how many shots of whatever and how many drinks of whatever? And these people are making these huge deals and they're not even 100% authentically present.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, it goes back to, I mean, our founding fathers. It goes back centuries, like billions. I mean, not billions. I'm really tired. But it just like that is part of the culture. And honestly, like when I wasn't partaking in a glass of wine at the dinner table, when I was taking like my partners out for dinner, it was strange. Like, I am already this young woman. I'm 5'1", so super, super short. I look pretty young as it is. So all of a sudden I'm at the time I was representing Disney, and I was taking these people out to dinner, and I wasn't drinking, and it was almost like, okay, there's a kid at the table.
This little kid was taking us out to
and like, it's just so interesting that consuming alcohol gives you that ticket of like adulthood and the ability to make deals and talk business and things like that. And breaking that stigma is so important to me because it's just another thing that like sets you apart if you're sober curious, a non-drinker, and you're in the corporate world.
Yeah. And actually, I want to go back to what you said about like the founding fathers and like how it's been ingrained since then. And that was actually a huge reason why we created a bar, right? I mean, when you think about socialization without alcohol, like you're not going to think about creating a bar because in our society, like a bar goes hand in hand with alcohol. But the whole purpose of creating a bar is for that meeting place, that place where you're able to kind of activate these connections, whether they're business or personal. And it's a really important place in our society. It's an important setting, especially if you're someone who's just sober curious. You're not necessarily looking at it from a recovery standpoint, but you still want to engage in those business deals, those personal connections, but you just want an opportunity to not feel pressured to be a part of whatever alcohol consumption is happening. So it's so hand in hand. It's like we're destigmatizing not only what a bar means, but how you can conduct yourself in a bar setting or in a dinner setting where there's alcohol, and choosing to remove yourself from that.
Yeah.
Well, it's so because how many people are having dinner parties these days? Let's like face it. I mean, since the pandemic, it feels like a lot of that stuff has fallen off, and a lot of people aren't going to people's houses for dinner. And then you already have your core. Let's say you want to meet somebody to spend the rest of your life with, and you're like, that person is not in my core group. I need to go out and meet this person.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go have, a bunch of cocktails and then go and meet somebody and not be my authentic self.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. It's so tough that like oftentimes your first date is a drink, and then that's part of the process, right? Your first date's a drink, the second date is dinner.
Yeah.
And
we've
had I've been at a first date where I'm like, okay, I'll get an iced tea, and it's awkward because of that stigma.
Yeah.
And because like you get sick of iced tea.
And we've had so many people come to our events and be like, yeah, I went on a date and I felt like I had to order a cocktail or else I had to explain why I wasn't. And it was like, well, I didn't want my sober curiosity or my sobriety or my non-drinking status to be the topic of conversation for that first date because it doesn't define all of me, right? And so removing that stigma is so important, and just like helping us all feel like we can just be part of the conversation without that status of your whatever you're drinking, how often you're drinking, being like the forefront of every conversation.
Yeah. And what was mind blowing to me actually for most of our bigger format events was almost everyone talked to 5 to 10 people that they did not know. And I'd never seen that at a bar before. Like normally you go to the bar, you like get some drinks, you talk to the 2 people you came with, and then you leave. And it's awkward. But at our bars, like we started to see this magical thing where people felt so like confident in themselves for being there, and also just our drinks, we curate them to be these sophisticated, like fun things
Delicious
to consume, to
cocktails.
hold in your hand.
Yeah.
So people will take their drink and walk over to some random group and introduce themselves, and that is the magic that honestly keeps us going.
Yeah, and we've actually had a lot of people come to our events solo after their first experience. It's zero proof they feel comfortable coming to the next on their own, and just using an opportunity to meet new people.
It is brilliant. I am like, why wasn't this here when I was a kid? Oh my gosh, I just love it because, all of these things that you guys have brought up today are so important. Like, for one, going to work, meeting someone that you might spend the rest. I mean, I met my first husband in a bar. I'm not kidding. I did. That's how I met him. I mean, I was with friends that knew him through other friends, but still, I wasn't being me. I was like trying to be what everybody else, because when we drink, we're what everybody else wants us to be, and we aren't who we are.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And to figure that out at your age, to realize like I want to be my true self. And even if I am 5'1" and I look like I'm 15, I'm not, I'm 27. And when you're older, you're gonna be so grateful for that, by the way. And those jeans are so awesome. But going to that place where you're like, I don't need to put 47 cocktails into me so that I can show up and be what society says it wants me to be. And I feel like with social media, especially with what they have with the makeup and the outfits and the selfies, constant selfie, selfie, selfie. And we're all looking for this thing for somebody to say you're okay.
Yeah.
But to think that you get to go to a bar and everybody there has shown up and you're all going, and you all know that you're not going to drink tonight, but you're going to have a really good time. Is like the best, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I read this quote recently. It was discussing, and I don't remember it word for word, but it was discussing how social media has forced us to kind of remove everything that has made us human. You're supposed to put makeup on to cover any blemishes. You're supposed to, have worked out every single day and have this perfect body and this appear so correct and flawless every time you're presenting yourself online, and now in person too, the same way. And I think changing the way we socialize kind of pushes us back towards that nature of like, who are you at your most authentic, as your most authentic self. And if you're able to kind of step into a social situation where you feel comfortable and confident to not have to drink, then I feel like for us, in our experience, like it's unlocked so much confidence in just being ourselves in every scenario, not just with zero proof. So it feels really special to have figured that out so young, and to be able to create that space for other people our age and beyond.
Well, so to think that your parents must have it's instilled in you both such confidence, because to go to college and to go to all these situations and say, I know you want me to drink, but I don't want to drink. And I don't care that you want me to drink, but I don't want to drink. And staying strong within that, because there's so much social pressure, right? To do all these things and take all these things that you don't know what they are, or smoking weed and doing these edibles that are all over the place. Like, I don't even know. I haven't done any of these things, so I have no idea what the side effects, but I have had friends that say it's really scary when you take these things, because you can't take it out, right? It's in your body. You're already processing it. You can't, I mean, if you feel freaked out, you have to go to the hospital. I mean, it's crazy. So taking that away and you guys saying no, how did you do that? And what would you say to somebody who's out there going, I want to do the same thing and I don't want to push, I don't want to take that edible, or I don't want to push, I don't want to drink that thing, and I don't want to snort that thing, I don't want to smoke that
Yeah.
thing. You know,
Yeah.
how do you do it? How do you do it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so hard. There's so much pressure. I remember, so I was in college, I was part of this fancy dance crew. We were like the top dance crew in the school. I'd wear my like break free gear and everyone would um recognize it. So with that came like these like big dance parties, and I at one point I was living in a house with 7 girls, and we'd have these huge pitch perfect style dance parties. And I remember this one time where there was just so much pressure to drink. Everyone was like, if you like take this shot, I'm just gonna you're gonna be the coolest person I know. Or like take a hit from this bong, like I'm gonna celebrate you so much. There is that energy of like, oh, if you partake in this in alcohol or drugs, like you're just the coolest person.
It's so glamorized,
Yeah,
right?
it's very glamorized. So fighting that is really challenging. Um, I think I mean it oftentimes like it's not easy to say no, and you slip up,
I would imagine.
and and you feel like, okay, it's just this one time, like it'll help my like um social hierarchy in the world, or help me feel accepted and not lonely. But I think like going back to what your vision for yourself is and how you feel most healthy and how you feel most happy is really important. And like having that mental health toolkit of like, I know I need to eat, sleep, breathe, um, and and not drink to feel good. And I think just taking myself back to that and reminding myself, and then also building a community that also didn't um, enjoy partaking in alcohol was huge. But like definitely like I've continued to like it's been 6 years since I turned 21. And I continue to be othered by really close friends when I don't want to drink.
I was gonna say, Priyanka touched on this, but first and foremost, I think finding your why, like you said, that's the most important. But figuring out why you even want to question your relationship with alcohol. But
Yeah.
then, like, when it gets hard, I think there's a couple ways you can do it where you don't have to constantly be explaining yourself. You can have a glass and have in it soda water, whatever concoction that doesn't include alcohol, and it can be in a red Solo cup or a glass or whatever, so that you feel like you're fitting in and you're able to have something in your glass, and maybe people aren't questioning why you're not holding something then. I think that alone, if you're just starting out and feeling that social pressure, that can help a lot, is just kind of removing the questions.
Yeah.
And then
Fake it till you make
fake
it.
it till you make it. And then over time, like, I think one of the hardest parts of making that lifestyle change is removing the negative. Like Priyanka said, she's had a lot of close friends. I've had a lot of close friends clash with this idea of changing my lifestyle to be a non-drinker. And while it took a lot of confidence and courage to remove some of the negativity, that was the biggest change that I noticed in feeling empowered to continue being a non-drinker. So that would be my biggest advice, is like, start off with baby steps, figure out your why, and then from there, like, take each step that will help you feel a little bit more confident and a little bit more comfortable stepping into that authentic choice.
Now, what was your why, Mita?
For me, it was a combination of things. It was one, wellness. I'm very, and this has developed over time as I've become a non-drinker too. I'm very in tune with my body, and I knew every time I drank that it didn't feel good, and it didn't feel good in my physical body, and it definitely didn't help my anxiety and depression that I suffered with in college. And so that was first and foremost. I know it doesn't sit right with me. And then secondly, I knew that I wasn't being my authentic self. If I didn't want to drink and I was choosing to, I wasn't standing up for myself and my own wants. So how could I appear in a social situation where I knew I was kind of being a fraud to myself? It felt so fake. And so that was my why. Was I know that I am most myself, and I'm most happy when I can be my authentic self. And for me, drinking wasn't allowing that.
It's just, I mean, and then you just mentioned mental health. I have to say, you just mental health is so big, right? There's
So
so much anxiety in the world today, and especially from this thing, and social media and all the rest of it. And I know so many young women, and I'm sure young men as well, but I especially know young women that battle this, and then they go on antidepressants, and you
yep,
mix an antidepressant with alcohol, and it's a horrible,
Yeah,
horrible,
it
horrible thing to
spirals.
do. Yeah,
yeah,
spiral. Then it's even worse, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's actually pretty insane. When I think about this going back to college, I realized that coming into college, we had little to no education on alcohol. I remember the education was like, oh, 2 drinks is good, 4 drinks is too much, and 8 is like binge drinking. I think that was the type of education we
and
had.
then they just put the alcohol goggles on. You're like, okay, well,
Yeah,
it,
yeah, it wasn't like anything about how it impacts your physical or mental health. And then the second thing was we didn't have any education on depression and anxiety.
yeah,
So when I started experiencing depression and anxiety in college, it was such a foreign thing to me.
yeah,
I had no idea what was going on with myself. And then on top of that, you have that social pressure to drink. And it's just such a confusing time that, like, I think a lot of like what we're trying to do with Zero Proof is also bring that like education of like there's so many different aspects to your mind and your wellness that it's so important to be able to have that opportunity to take one night off or a week or a month off of drinking and see like how you feel, and if that's depression, if that's anxiety, is that if that's substance um abuse, and figure out like what what is your what is your mental, what's your like, I guess, emotional balance, and go from there. Like, and figure out like, can you partake in alcohol occasionally, or is this something that you need to remove from your um, from your
routine
routine
altogether. Yeah,
altogether?
Your social life, your everything, and say
yeah,
it's not part of my
yeah.
diet. And it's so, when you talk about the mental health issue, and you talked about never talking about it at school and nobody ever telling you what alcoholism. I mean, I will tell you this, doctors don't even talk about it. They spend, I think, 10 minutes in medical school on alcoholism in general, right? And I feel like so many people in the world are affected by, like, in every every walk of life, every type of person. It's in every family, has it
Touched
somewhere,
everyone's
right?
life somewhere. Yeah,
Somewhere. And having this as a resource and to be able to do this. So now I want to ask you, when you go to your parties, now what do you have? Do you have what's your favorite you might not be able to tell me what your favorite thing is to drink there, but do you do beer, and do you do wine, and I know there's like, somebody just bought us a six. We just moved, so somebody gave us a hostess gift of fake beer, and then they gave, I call it fake beer, non-alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic wine. We haven't tried it yet. I have like 3 different kinds in my refrigerator. What's your favorite?
yeah, great question. The one thing that I will first and foremost say is we are so proud to have a full bar at all of our events. We have the non-alcoholic beer, we have non-alcoholic wine, we'll have a non-alcoholic ready-to-drink aperitif option, but then we also have typically between 4 and 6 non-alcoholic cocktails that we have curated ourselves. So those take the non-alcoholic spirits and the organic, low sugar, low calorie mixers, and we create um, spins on classic cocktails. Like we have our espresso martini that's made with tequila instead of typical vodka or gin because we like the spiciness from it. So we'll spend a lot of our own we'll take a lot of our own favorite personal cocktails and we'll do a lot of R&D on the recipes to create options for our bars.
Yeah, my favorite is the espresso martini. And I think that was like my go-to actually when I would go to a bar with friends and not drink was I'd ask the bartender to make me an espresso martini without the alcohol, which they'd always be like, that's just
What's
coffee. But it's like it's fun. And it just adds a little kick to your step when it's late at night.
Yeah. My favorite would be we have a spicy mango margarita and it has a mezcal. It's from Cut Above in it. And I really like that one because it tastes like a margarita, but it's so much better because it doesn't have the like nasty punch of alcohol. It just brings out the like flavors of mezcal that bring the balance to the sweetness of the mango. So that one's really awesome.
Yeah, and I will say like so many times I've ordered a mocktail at a bar and then felt just this insane like sugar crash, and then you almost feel like a sugar for the next day. So we go through like insane lengths to avoid that. It's just like so important to not replace alcohol with sugar or replace sugar without. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I get it. She just flew from Japan. So you guys are your own mixologists too. So you're going to have to start. So you're going to have zero proofed cookbook. You know, you're going to have to do a mixology book for everybody to make your famous drinks that you make because they sound delicious. I will tell you that back years ago when I was first doing this, I also used to go on Facebook every Thursday and I would do it Thursday, and I would make a different drink and I'd make like Purple Rain because I love Prince, you know, that album, the Prince album. And that was like my favorite thing. And then my husband and I are both sober. So our wedding was sober and I just made and we got married at Christmas time. So we had like the Jolly Jingle and the what was the one was a berry something, but it's you know, it's so fun to get in there and do these things because in reality we all want to be social. We all want to be with people. That's what, you know, God made us this way, right? He wanted us to be with others and not be stuck in our houses by ourselves or being something that we really aren't, right? Which alcohol makes us what we really aren't.
That's something that that's something that I wanted to mention is like recently I was looking at the loneliness epidemic, and there's been a lot of research in like 2023 and 2022 on how many adults in the United States identify as lonely, which is little to no social connection or one or two less than one or two close friends.
Feeling very disconnected, essentially.
And I realized that like we have all of these social avenues right now, but they all have alcohol as part of them. And I think that the fact that we're in a loneliness epidemic now kind of shows that alcohol is not cutting it. Like we just need to innovate on our social opportunities, our cultural fabric, so that we can allow people to connect more. And there were in history, there's a lot of ways that people develop this community. Sometimes it's through religion, spirituality, sometimes just through different like having a town square that you run into people like every time you go to get bread. It's happened a lot in the past, but while we're innovating our technology, we also need to innovate the social side, and we need to like bring those two together and really develop that. I think we need to have that revolution, just as we're having an AI revolution. We need to
have a social connection revolution.
So
absolutely.
This is
well, for one, I also wanted to throw in there before we finish, because I want to ask one more question before I let you girls go, because you guys, they just got off a plane. You know, be with the anxiety and with the depression that is so rampant and the mental health that is so rampant and the loneliness that's so rampant, and we say, oh my gosh, we're going to go get a drink. Nobody really talks about the fact that alcohol is a depressant. So
Mhm.
yes, it will give you a high for a brief period of time, but in the end, you wake up the next day feeling exhausted, feeling less than, because the alcohol made you feel sad. Because it's
Yeah.
not, it's there to make you happy in the moment, but once it's leaving your body, it's making you feel depressed. And again, more lonely. So if you start off going to parties where you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't drink, I met all these fun people, we're going to get together again, I'm so excited, this is amazing, and I'm not hungover and I'm ready to go for a run and life is so great, is the best thing. So and I have two questions. When is your next party?
So,
We actually have a cocktail class coming up. So you can learn how to build some of our cocktails with zero proof spirits. That is on August 26th in
yep.
Los Angeles. We have a couple parties coming up in San Diego and Denver. And you can find that on our Instagram, or on our mailing list. We have a link on our Instagram to our mailing list, and we'll send out a roll up of events. And we also just we put out a monthly digest every month with our favorite cocktail recipes, some of the good quit lit that we like listening to, or just articles and podcasts on sober curiosity. Um, and we also have merch that we put out, just to stay engaged. Our quote is that our motto is actually "Get your Sundays back," which is kind of an ode to what you were saying, which is waking up Sunday morning and with that pep in your step, and being able to take on the day and realizing that things are just really exciting the next morning when you don't feel hungover.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about your merch, because it's so cute. And I see that Mita's wearing one. Look at how
Yes,
cute
I
that is. Get your Sundays back. I love that. So cute. You guys, this has been so much fun. I want you to come to Florida. They have to come to Florida. You have to come to Miami or to Delray and do a pop up, because
I
that's
would
the
love
fun place. Okay, you have to do it. And I am coming. I am coming. So you have to invite me, because
that.
I
Of course.
really want to meet you guys in person. And I just love that there's no stigma here. This is all about just having fun, right? Because you both are beautiful and you're out there like you're making everybody have fun, aren't you?
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank
Yeah.
you.
I
It's
just love.
it's been so much fun for us too.
Yeah.
I bet. I bet people are just in awe of you. Your parents must be like, oh my gosh, look at what you guys have done. You're like spearheading a whole new culture.
Yeah.
Said mentioned how many times they've mentioned many times how proud they are of us, which has been really nice to have their support.
Yeah, and they've been so supportive. Both our parents have been at a couple of our events. Our mom was at our first event, and she was a runner back when we only had one bartender. And since then, we've grown our staff, but they've still been super excited and involved. And yeah, I mean, both of us work full-time jobs, so it's really our family and our community that have allowed us to do this so far.
And I want to ask, what is the age group of people that come?
It is actually a full gambit. We have, I think, everyone from like 20, like mid 20s to mid 40s. I would say it's the average.
Yeah, and then I think we have like a definitely like a large amount of like mid late 20s, mid 30s. And then I would say like we have a pretty big crowd that is in their late 40s, late 50s. So it's a pretty big spectrum.
Yeah.
Which we really like. It's so cool that it can be a melting pot. We get a lot of like diverse backgrounds too. And that's really important for both of us as female engineers. We've always just been the only colored woman in the room a lot of times. So like getting a diverse crowd is really important to us. Also just we'll staff up with a very diverse staff because we want to empower like people from different backgrounds to meet and share and partake in these cocktails. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So your day job, you both are engineers.
Yeah.
So we both are engineers by training, and then I now am a consultant. So I stepped away from engineering, but that we have a very similar background.
Yeah, we
So
both studied
great.
mechanical engineering. I went the aerospace route, so it was always a dream for me to work for NASA, and I ended up working on a rocket, not for NASA, but as a provider of rocket launch services. And now I'm actually working on the clean water crisis that we're having now. And it's been really exciting to like work on something so creative in parallel to our engineering roles and management consulting roles.
Well, I just love it. I'm so glad you guys are here and that you guys said yes to come on. I really appreciate it. Now, everybody listening, I'm going to have a link that you can go and follow and read about the girls and follow them on social media and all of that. You guys, thank you so much. And everybody out there, you know, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and subscribe to my channels, please, please, please. And you can reach me at elizabeth@elizabethchance.com. Until next time, keep getting busy, living so. Bye-bye.